going to mention the request on people announcing themselves before you take roll. That's okay. Good evening and welcome to the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 10th, 2021. The time is 5:35 p.m. Before we take roll, we had a discussion during our agenda meeting. It's a little, with the Zoom meetings occurring and having people present, it's difficult to see who's speaking. So if you are going to speak, if you could please announce who you are. For example, Commissioner Greer here, so who you are and what you're wanting to say. That way, it not only helps me identify who you are, but it also helps Rachel keep her records. Is that good, everybody? Okay. Okay, Rachel, could you please take roll?
Yes, thanks. Joe Greer.
Present.
Dom Gelsomino.
Present.
Autumn Short.
Present.
Jennifer
Present.
Bobo. Is that, oh yeah, Camden Hyde.
Present.
Keith Bevan.
Present.
John Nesmith is present. Albert Kang.
Present.
Jessica West.
Present.
And Council Member Perot is absent.
Okay, we need to move on to an adoption of the agenda.
Madam President,
Yes, Commissioner Gelsomino.
I move that we adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Can I get a
Madam
second?
President, this is Commissioner Bevan. I second the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Bevan, second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda carries. Next, we need to go on to the approval of the meeting minutes from January 13th, 2021.
Madam President, this is Commissioner Gelsomino. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 13th meeting.
Can you get a second?
Madam President, this is Commissioner Bevan. I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the approval of the minutes carries. Next, we have announcements with Shelley Houston.
Unmute. Here I am. Hello, commissioners. I hope you can see and hear me. There's finally a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of activities and events. I'm the marketing and communication coordinator, but I've got my foot in all the events as well. So each commission meeting, I come and kind of clue you in on the next few fun things that we have planned for the public. So the first I want to tell you about is this weekend. It's more of a campaign than an event or activity. It's called Meridian Has Heart. And what we're doing is we're encouraging the public this Saturday and Sunday, kind of in light of Valentine's Day, the holiday of love, to show love and appreciation to others. And so we're posing the question, who do you appreciate? And we're encouraging them to perform acts of love and kindness for others. And if they wish to share some of their expressions of kindness given or received, that they can take a picture and post it on social media with a hashtag Meridian Has Heart. And it's got a cute little logo in the city colors. And some of the examples we gave were to draw a chalk on, a chalk heart on someone's sidewalk, or to leave a little gift for the mail carrier, or to take treats to a neighbor, or to leave a bigger than usual tip if they go to their favorite restaurant, that sort of thing. We're not telling them what to do, but we're just saying, if you have an opportunity to show love and appreciation and kindness, then Meridian Has Heart. So that's the campaign this weekend. Then we're also out in the blizzard on Saturday doing something fun in the plaza called blind date with a book. And this is kind of linked to the Little Free Library, and this is kind of for the readers out there. And so blind date with a book, the concept is that we've wrapped several novels. They're all books in excellent condition, full-length novels, and we've disguised their title and their cover with brown paper and some decorations, and we've just put a tag on each one that tells basically some little teasers or clues or hints what the book is about. And so people were saying can come to the plaza between 1 and 3 p.m. We're going to be outdoors for social distancing, and they can look at the books and choose a book to take home for free. There's no strings attached. I'll be educating them about the Little Free Library and how it works. We've also said that if anyone that has books are ready to donate and clear off their bookshelves, we'll do that. I'm going to hold up a book so you can see what a wrapped book looks like. Can you see that? They're wrapped in brown paper. They've got some cute little stickers. This little one says, "Don't go breaking my heart. Please unwrap me gently." Let me read the clues on this one. It says, "She scored an invitation. It's time for a change of focus. A young woman has disappeared. Even beautiful resort towns in Maine have an underbelly. Nautical flair. This guy is everywhere except where he needs to be. Prepare for choppy waters. You'll be hungry for seafood." So each book has some quirky little hints or clues to entice someone to choose it. So we'll see what happens. I'll be out there from 1 to 3 in City Hall Plaza this Saturday for blind date with a book. And if the weather kills it, then maybe we'll do a second session somewhere. We have about 80 books wrapped and ready to go. So that's really all I have to tell you about. Like I say, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We're scheming and dreaming some future events. We'll plan everything with plan A and plan B because we're not quite sure what COVID situation is going to be. But there are going to be some fun times ahead, and we're all geared up. So that's my report.
Thank you, Shelley. It's awesome to see that we have some events.
Yes.
It's exciting. Does anyone have
Good.
any questions? No questions? Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks. Have a good meeting.
You too. Okay, moving on to old business. We have the Lakeview Golf Course Master Plan Progress Update. That was with Ed. I don't see. Oh, where are you?
Yes.
Oh, you're the initials. Okay. Hi, Ed.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, I'm glad to be here tonight. And Forrest Richardson, golf course architect and current president of the American Society of Golf Course Architects, is also joining us. He's part of our team for this project, and he'll be talking in a few minutes. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of where we've been, where we are, and what some of the next steps are in our master/strategic plan process for Lakeview. We're still early in the process. As Mike and Steve know, this is a months-long study, and we're about a month and a half to 2 months in, including the holidays. But we've made a lot of progress, and our initial focus has been on, well, two things: community and stakeholder engagement. And the first piece of that was a golfer survey that was initiated by Kemper in December. Kemper Sports, your manager for the golf course. And the bar was set pretty low because it basically reflected the conditions and the service under the previous lessee. So we plan to do another golfer survey sometime in March or April. Even if it's after the master plan is delivered, I think it'll still be very helpful to see what kind of progress is being made in terms of the improvements the city's making and the customer service initiatives of Kemper, et cetera. Another part of the early community and stakeholder engagement is one-on-one meetings, phone meetings, or virtual meetings that we've had with Mayor Simison and most of the council. I think we're missing only one council person at this point. Parks and Rec Commission, 4 of you guys, I think Albert, Jessica, Jennifer, and Camden, I think, have all participated so far. And next up is the Golf Focus Group. We've had several meetings with the Golf Focus Group, as well as one-on-one calls with them and some other people, such as the former mayor, Tammy, I've spoken to Todd Lavoy, the Chief Financial Officer. So we want to make sure we speak to everybody in this process. So somebody at the end doesn't get the report and say, wait, they never asked for our opinion. Next up in the process of stakeholder engagement is the Men's and Women's Association and the HOA reps. For the Men's and Women's Association, I've already contacted the presidents there, and they're gonna choose 3, 4, 5 people so we could do individual focus groups, virtual focus groups via Zoom. And as far as the HOA reps, I've spoken to Rick with Cherry Lane and Eric with Snake River. I understand Eric is just with the management company, so he's going to pass our information along to the president of the board. And what we plan on doing with the HOA, since so many of them, we did, Mike and Steve basically provided contact information for all the HOAs within a mile radius. And I think there ended up being 10 or more. So what we're going to try and do is do one-on-one calls with representatives of all the HOAs, and then follow up with a survey, an online survey. And the survey will try to get at issues such as their opinions of the golf course, whether they use it as a golfer, whether they use the restaurant, things like that. What can get them to use the restaurant more than they do now, or if they don't use it at all, why not? So we're crafting a survey that'll be informed by these one-on-one calls with the HOA representatives. And the second key part of our initial focus has been on the physical assessment of Lakeview. I know one of the priorities of the city is to get an idea of how much money is going to have to be invested in Lakeview. And that's been our focus up front. The current conditions, we had Forrest out a couple of weeks ago, and he spent the day there at Lakeview assessing current conditions and looking at some of the key issues. I mean, this is an older golf course. Not a lot has been invested by the previous lessee. So a lot of the infrastructure is essentially near its end of its expected useful life or past it. I think you all know about the irrigation system. That's been pretty prominent in terms of the need to replace the irrigation system. But we've taken a holistic view of the golf course, and I'll let Forrest get into that a little bit. And we want to produce a prioritized capital improvement plan that'll be, I think Mike and Steve, you're going to tell me that's been expedited a little bit. So we're going to try and get that to you in the next couple of weeks. Originally, it was intended to be part of the full report, but it's so important that we feel like we want to get that to you sooner rather than later. And Forrest, I'm going to skip ahead and then finish and turn it back to you, if that's all right. Some of the things we've done to date: ongoing meetings with Mike and Steve and with Kemper Sports, participating in the focus group meetings, and engagement, as I mentioned, with all those other groups. And the next steps are to finish the stakeholder engagement over the next few weeks, get the survey of the HOA residents into the field, and to produce the prioritized capital improvement plan by hopefully March 1st. And then we'll turn our attentions more to the operations side. We have certainly had ongoing conversations with the Kemper management team and the on-site management team. So on the operations side, we'll be giving you a high-level strategic recommendations. For instance, whether you should be operated as or accounted for as whether golf should be accounted for as an enterprise fund versus general fund, special revenue fund. How should we deal with the operating structure going forward? As many of you know, Kemper Sports is only on a month-to-month agreement right now. They're on a fee-for-service agreement. So we want to discuss that. What do other municipalities do? What tends to be successful? And what's the best fit for Lakeview? And then some other best practice operational recommendations, fees and marketing, direct sales, staffing levels, food and beverage, programming. So we're going to give you a very comprehensive report, but the early focus right now is on the capital improvement plan. The course is not in great condition, and really it's the tail that wags the dog is improving this golf course. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Forrest, and I'm kind of racing through because I think you'll have a lot of questions, and I know Forrest wants to spend a few minutes on this as well.
Well, hello, thank you, commissioners and staff. As Ed mentioned, I was out there January 15th and 16th. It was sort of a foggy day in Boise and Meridian, so I but I had some clear weather and I got to spend time with the staff at the golf course, the Kemper staff, and got a very good tour and a handle on what's there. Our primary focus in working with Ed and his team is to look at the golf course conditions. And so that really entails looking at the features of the golf course, the turf, any safety issues that are obvious that we want to look at further, and also the irrigation and water storage system, which is quite a big part of what you've inherited with the Lakeview property. We also looked at the practice facilities, the landscaping, the health of the trees, the maintenance facility itself, and then very important in public municipal golf is ADA compliance. Most people don't think of golf courses as having ADA compliant issues, but they do. And there are federal guidelines that cover golf facilities. So I took a look at that while I was out there. Just real briefly, in case you don't know, the original golf course, 9 holes, was built in 1979. The golf course architect was Robert Baldock, who did a lot of work in the West. I'm not sure how many courses in Idaho, but more than one, Lakeview being one. He was also very prolific for doing work for military courses. It's a little unclear whether he and his son did the second 9 holes when that was added in 1979 or 1997, pardon me. But it appears as though maybe that they did. As Ed mentioned, the older part of the golf course, which is the east portion, is really at a point now where most all of the components of the golf course are well past what you would normally expect them to last without significant renovation and some work that's more than just the annual maintenance. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that we'll be reporting to the city and for you all to digest is the fact that, you do have a lot of what we call deferred maintenance or deferred capital that exists on the property. Having said that, it's still a very enjoyable golf course, and there's a lot of pluses to it. I'm a big believer in municipal golf. It's a very social sport and pastime. And as we all know, and in case you don't know, Ed can elaborate on this if you have any questions, but golf has been one of the greatest reprieves during the COVID pandemic worldwide. And it's got built-in social distancing, yet it allows people to communicate and be together. I'll kind of jump ahead to, and then I'll be available for any questions that you have. But the main things that we've focused on that need work or are going to be in the category of needing some plans to be able to plan capital expenditures and improvements are the irrigation system, which is a significant, it's kind of the heart of the golf course, especially in the summer months when you need to apply water to make up for the ambient rain that you don't get. And connected to that is the large lake out in front of the clubhouse. That's also a driving range, what we call an aqua range, where floating golf balls are used and the players hit balls out into the lake. And that whole system, I would describe it as being very, very broken. So there's the storage capacity, the way the water gets there, the way it's pumped, and the irrigation system itself is in need of a lot of work. The drainage across the golf course, because it's flat, is also a problem. And that's something that would ideally be addressed when you're dealing with the irrigation, because you're disrupting the golf course and you're trenching and doing things across really all of the areas of the golf course. And the drainage is really hand in hand with the irrigation. We also recognize the need to have more forward tees so that the golf course is more diverse and has a better opportunity to serve seniors and kids, beginners, people coming into the game, people that don't hit the ball as far. Your golf course is probably, I would say, about 1,000 yards longer from the very forward tees than it ideally would be, especially for a course that wants to be part of your recreation system. Safety is a concern, and the Eastern 9 especially has what we call very tight corridors in some areas between one house to the house on the other side of the fairway. So we've taken a look at that. We've made some suggestions, even already, to Kemper, your management group, on how they can, just in the meantime, perhaps mitigate some of those issues. The features of the golf course need some work, like the bunkers, the hazards. And then we think cart paths. This golf course really doesn't have any cart paths, and that exasperates the problem of drainage. So as you get wet areas following rains or even irrigation, the carts that are on the golf course create ruts, and then the ruts create potholes, and then those get bigger and they create turf issues and health issues. And so I think over time, the city will benefit by really looking at a cart path system that services. And it might not be done all at one time, but it's, I think, an important part. And then lastly, talking to your staff and looking at your recreation program, I think that having some opportunities for youth would be very beneficial to the facility. Right now, there's not a lot of practice facilities other than the driving range itself. There's a putting green. There's a very, very small, what we call a short game green, but it's in a not very good location where you couldn't have a lot of people using it. So one of the things we're looking at is trying to create a place that we could maybe make some changes here and there to have maybe a dedicated area for beginners and youth. And the other thing we find when we do that is we've created an area that can also be used for bringing people into the game and training and practice. And yesterday I was with a group here in Phoenix, the Wounded Warriors group, and I sit on a disabled golf initiative of the USGA. And I think that that's sometimes a forgotten area, but we bring a lot of people out into the outdoors who are disabled, and they need an area to be able to learn to play golf. And it's typically not the golf course itself, and it might not even be a driving range, because some of them are not able to actually drive. They're more able to putt and partake in the short game parts of the golf course. So those are just some of the areas that will be a part of the report and findings. And I'm available to answer any questions that I can now, or clarify anything that maybe I didn't cover in the detail that you all want to hear.
Madam President, this is Commissioner West. Was to Mike Barton and Steve Sidaway, you guys anticipated some of the items that he mentioned, because you'd mentioned them previously. Is anything that he mentioned during this high level review a major surprise to you?
Yeah, Madam President, this is Mike Barton. I'll just say that, we were talking to Ed last week about some of these items, and Ed put it really well when he classified a lot of this as a lot of these capital improvements and deferred maintenance that could be categorized into 3 different buckets. And the first bucket being in more operational needs, where carts and maintenance equipment and things that you need on a daily basis and things that are revenue generators are in that first bucket. And then the second bucket is obviously the irrigation system and any infrastructure. And then the third bucket would be the enhancements to the course, whether it be practice facilities or cart paths. And so really, none of this really surprises us. And, we want to break it out, and we want to have a prioritized list and identify the different buckets first. And then within each one, develop some priorities, because we know that budgets are tight. We want to spend the money wisely. We want it to be viable for a lot of years. And I think that's our approach, and I hope that helps clarify some of that. But yeah, it's a long answer to yes, we expected a lot of this.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Ed, were you finished?
Yeah, Madam President, one more thing that I might add, and some of this report is identifying problems, but also we fully expect to identify a lot of the good attributes of the golf course. And there's a loyal following, and it's in the middle of the neighborhood that's, kind of right in some of the heart of Meridian, and there are a lot of good attributes to the course, so a lot of positive things to build on.
Yeah,
that's
Mike,
a good
Mike, if
point.
I could add to that, obviously that, this was kind of a clinical update as to what we've been doing and where we are. But that's a great point, Mike. There is a lot of positive here. We only have 1 year of financials we think we can trust from the previous lessee, but it showed an on-site profit. It's got a pretty vigorous food and beverage revenue center, and this is all without a lot of tender loving care. The Kemper survey of the golfers from December showed some of the lowest ratings we've ever seen in terms of just about everything, other than maybe customer service wasn't as bad as some of the other things. But so you're starting from a very low starting point, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think with the plan that we're going to put together for you, which is going to be mainly high level things in terms of operations. We're not going to tell Kemper how to run their day-to-day operations, but we're going to give you some best business practices. And I think a lot of the capital items, if enacted, they're really important. I mean, maybe it's a big chunk to bite off in the beginning, but it's really going to help you contribute to an improved bottom line for decades to come. So you're starting out from a bad position in terms of the physical infrastructure, but you have a built-in captive audience of all these homes around you, around the golf course, and you really don't have a lot of penetration into the broader daily fee market. And we think that these improvements to the golf course are really going to help you bring some of those people in the broader market, the daily fee players, into the fold, rather than relying predominantly on the pass holders, or exclusively almost on the pass holders. So we do think the facility has a lot of potential. So there are a lot of positives. I'm glad you brought that up, Mike. We were focusing more on process rather than some of the initial findings, but I'm glad you brought that up.
And also, Ed, just to follow up, I didn't mention, but I also, while I was there, I visited 5 competitive facilities that are public or open to the public. And I think that one of the strong points of Lakeview and your asset here, and that's how we think of it, as an asset for your public recreation offerings, is that given the right management and the right programming of what's there, you can really differentiate Lakeview very easily, because it's a very playable, user-friendly property. And that isn't the case with some of the other public facilities that Kemper and National Golf Foundation feel are direct competitors. And that's a real positive, is you have a golf course that's walkable, it's playable, and given some things like I mentioned, like the forward tees and maybe some other youth opportunities and practice opportunities, I think it can really be a very, very highly in demand facility, more so than it is, which is positive. Right now it has the neighborhood going for it, but I think one of the findings that Ed has found and that Kemper's excited about is that bringing people in from other parts of your city is a long range goal that's very workable and doable.
Commission President, I just have one more comment or feedback for you. Have we considered scheduling a workshop to go on site, since we can't go on site unless we're together, since I believe it has to be an official meeting, right, for us to do any kind of fact finding or on site. I know Mike and Steve spend a lot of time there, I anticipate, reviewing, but for us to actually see everything in action or being proposed for action, we would have to have a formal posted meeting. Is that correct?
Emily, do you want to chime in on that?
Yes, and that is generally correct. That's kind of the end game.
Okay, I just want to clarify this. That might be something we want to talk about, not tonight necessarily, but
It doesn't mean you can't go golfing, but
Yeah.
well,
And-
can we though?
Well, I
We
guess
can't,
to that point, if you wanted to, as a commissioner on the Parks and Recreation Commission, if you wanted to take a cart out and go around, you know, on a day that's not very busy, I can arrange that. And just maybe go by yourself or with someone else.
And Emily, and that would be acceptable? We can do that individually?
Well, yes, I wouldn't use it as a fact-finding mission so much as your Meridian citizens, and you're welcome to enjoy the golf course. So I think probably many of you have already been there. So that would generally be okay. If you are kind of doing a site visit, that's a good catch. Please don't do that, but feel free to just check it out. It's an amenity like our other amenities.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I know it gets a little bit gray if we know we're going to be like making recommendations on it. So I wasn't sure on this one where that
No
line.
need to avoid.
Thank you.
Madam President, this is Steve. I would just offer that in a few months, as the weather improves and we start receiving some of the pieces of a prioritized replacement list and things like that the commission wants to visit the golf course and see as a group, maybe we can at least talk about whether there's value in that and talk about that maybe as one of our meetings. It would obviously consume the meeting, but so we need to make sure we don't have a lot of other pressing needs for that night. But we could schedule one. I just don't think it's the right time right now while it's early in the process. But maybe once we start getting some of the findings together, we can look into that.
Thank you.
I think we definitely need to add that somewhere on the calendar when we get there. Another thing, if you haven't, the golf course does have a website. I've noticed that they are listing menus for the week. I don't see a golf course map, which maybe that's something that'll be added later. But I would encourage you to, if you haven't, go check out the website and maybe stay on top of that. I hope with some information.
Madam President, I don't know if they're full or not, but I know they are advertising some Valentine's weekend specials. So trying to get people to come out. So if you have interest in visiting the restaurant for Valentine's Day, it's by reservation only, but and I don't know if they're full. I don't know, but I know that's something they've been promoting recently.
I just saw that. Does anybody have anything else or any questions? And thank you for asking that question, Jessica, because we just had that whole walkthrough with Emily, and even I didn't put that together until you said something. Okay, well then, if that's everything for the golf course, we'll move on to the community center update.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, both.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
community center update is me. And this update's going to be fairly brief, but buckle up because we're going to put you to work next month on some things related to this. So here's where we're at. So the community center partnership that we've been working on over the past year will not be moving forward as originally planned. The agreement that existed between the Meridian Development Corporation, the city, and Galena expired at the end of January. Even though it expired, we still remain committed, as does the planning department and MDC, to bringing forward the vision of a new community center, as well as transforming that civic block into an iconic section of downtown. Internally, we've already got efforts underway to prepare a new RFP that to basically get this ball rolling again. We anticipate it to go out late spring, early summer, and be open for a few months to solicit new proposals for the project. So we look forward to continuing this process and project, and we'll keep the commission posted as it does move forward. As part of that moving forward, what I would like to do is come back to the commission next month as part of the March meeting, and bring the current vision for the community center. And I'd like to revisit that with you and ask the question, is this still the right vision for the new community center? Or, you know, a year and a half down the road, is there anything that you would like to discuss changing, updating? So we'd like to check in with you and just test that vision for the community center. We still like the vision for the community center, but we also like you guys have good eyes on things and can ask questions that might bring something to our attention that we weren't thinking about. So we would like to bring that vision forward to you next month, so that we can carry that forward to the city council and then to the RFP. So that is my update for tonight. The past one has ended at the end of January, but we are already making plans to move forward with a new request for proposals and keep things moving. So I'll just stop there and ask if there's any questions. And like I said, look forward to bringing you the vision for the community center and discussing it in detail next month.
Does anyone have any questions? Well, I look forward to seeing the vision and for our discussion next month on that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Okay, so moving on to new business, we have the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department Adult Sports Update with Skylar Cook.
Thank you, Madam President. We also have Maggie Combs on the call. Her and I worked together on this presentation for our sports update for 2020.
I think if you just hit the next slide, Rachel. Like hit the, there we go. Hi, Madam President. My name is Maggie Combs. I am the adult sports coordinator for the city of Meridian, and we just want to kind of give you an update of how 2020 went this summer for us. And Rachel's going to help us out by helping us go through the slides and everything this evening. And Skylar and me, feel free if there's a slide that somebody has a question on, ask us then, or wait till the end. Either way works for us. So 2020, a year in review. One more click, thank you. So we had our volleyball leagues. We did kind of have a little bit of some hiccups and everything this year due to COVID. There we go. So our winter volleyball league had 124 teams. This was actually an increase compared to last year by 6 teams. We did have to end early due to COVID. Ended a couple weeks early. That was right at the beginning of COVID getting going. We delayed our spring season. the start of that last year, which reduced our numbers by 11 teams that just didn't feel comfortable and everything. And we actually lost some teams during the season towards the end due to COVID, some of them being healthcare workers especially. So our spring season was down a little bit. Fall, we did see a decrease. We did decrease our numbers due to the schools also and what we allowed. So we were down to 98 teams, which was a decrease by 14 teams. And we had to end early due to COVID again with falling back to stage 2 this last time. All the teams have been very receptive, very understanding, and looking forward to what we can do and everything going forward. We were able to host our Holiday Classic tournament this year. That fell in the first weekend, first Saturday of November, and that raises money for a local Head Start program. That was a great turnout. We had a great experience. As teams were awesome to have come out and everything. We actually, you'll click one more time, Rachel. Thank you. The tournament's on a Saturday. It's a one-day event. Co-eds and women's teams. We actually increased our numbers this year and spread them out. So we actually had less people. We were able to up our number of teams, which sounds funny, but we were actually able to still have safe protocols and reduce how the teams came in and flowed in and out of the facility at that time. So teams came in, they played, and then they exited and kind of kept that flow of people going in and out. So it reduced the number of people in the facility instead of trying to keep them there all day like we have in the past. So that was a great thing. And again, teams have been really receptive. Skylar had some cornhole on Sunday, so I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, so with the volleyball tournament on Saturday, we saw an opportunity to do something on Sunday. So we brought in a cornhole tournament that had 11 teams, about 22 people in there. Just another opportunity to raise money for a good cause. We're going to continue to keep that going into 2021.
So continuing on with our year, we had our softball leagues. We didn't get to start our spring summer league until later in the year this year. We actually still increased our teams by 6 teams. We did lose a couple teams at the beginning, so we actually should have been higher than that if it would have been a normal season. But due to COVID, some of the teams chose not to participate. With the spring season running as far as it did, which it ended later than we normally would even end our fall season. We did not host a fall season. We just ran one season for softball this year, or in 2020. We were normally host a summer fun fast pitch tournament on Memorial Day weekend. That was canceled due to the restriction numbers of COVID. But in turn, we created a local fast pitch league with 10 teams of 16 and 18 and under teams. They came out during the weekdays and just played some like scrimmage games in a tournament type style that lasted over a couple weeks. Teams loved that we were able to get them on the field and be able to do that.
Yep. We were able to host our flag football league this fall at Story Park and Discovery Park. We played in our outfield areas, which limited, with softball being limited, it in turn limited how many teams we could take in for flag football, competing for that field space under the lights. We did get 14 teams, decreased by 4 due to COVID, and again, having to share that field space. Basketball league, unfortunately, was canceled this year. Basketball is probably one of the worst socially distant type of sports. So we were forced to scrap that this year.
We did create the 2020 Meridian Challenge, which was a run, bike, cycle, try to swim if you can, get people out and get motivated to be active, right kind of at the beginning of COVID. Just try to put something out there to the people. We did have 7 people participate, they had to complete at least 50 miles to be able to get a t-shirt, and we had 3 people complete that out of the 7, but everybody seemed to thoroughly enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. So we were able to add some new things this year, even with COVID, cornhole leagues being one of them. We played outdoor at Settlers Park. We had a summer league with 46 players and a fall league with 49. So we did increase a little bit. We also were able to do a spike ball league, trying to bring in those new social sports while also being able to be socially distanced. We had 10 players for the Spike Ball League, and then we had a tournament as well that had 6 players. These 2 leagues are something we're going to keep going in our future in 2021 and hope to build off of our success from 2020. Disc golf as well. We played at Kleiner Park. We did our first tournament out there on the front 9 holes that they have installed at Kleiner. We had 22 players attend that one. We were able to connect with Gem State Disc Golf and put on a second tournament over Halloween. This one we brought in some youth, and we were able to up that with 7 youth players and 29 adult players. So we're hoping to continue that partnership with Gem State Disc Golf and provide more tournaments like this in the future.
The Halloween one thing Skylar didn't mention, which was kind of, I thought really cool, was a lot of the teams came out dressed up and everything and dressed up for Halloween, not just the kids, the adults too. So they got really into it.
Yes.
So our program stats, number of teams, as you can tell, we did have a decent decrease in our numbers, which is obviously reflected from the decrease in being able to use the space, does not have a basketball league, the reduce in not having a fall softball league. So we did decrease those numbers. Obviously, what we plan for 2021 is to be able to meet or exceed. Our goal would obviously be to exceed those numbers this year as well. So we did see that decrease dramatically by not having those 2, which then again was reflected in how number of events that participated. Still 3,899, so just shy of 4,000 participants being able to be part of the City of Meridian sports leagues, which is still 4,000 people we got out to be, or almost 4,000 people we got out to be active and involved. We did have some sponsorships and donations for the volleyball and cornhole tournaments. Sparklight, with the unknown of how COVID was going to affect the potential of hosting the Holiday Classic tournament, which does raise money for Christmas gifts for the kids. Renee White has a great relationship with Sparklight and was communicating with them, and they said they wanted to help step up and guarantee that the kids were going to be able to have a Christmas no matter what. And they donated and became a good sponsor and partner for that tournament this year, which was a saving grace for that, which was amazing. 10 Mile, we moved Walmarts because of how COVID affected. We usually use the one over on Fairview and partnered with them, but because of how schools were delayed, they were not able to partner. And 10 Mile said, hey, we'll step up and we'll help out. And they were able to donate 2 baskets for raffles, and they donated a portion or gave us a percentage when we bought our shopping and did our shopping for the kids there. So they've become a great new partner and everything this year as well. Wahoo's, they gave us some passes, always been a great partner, and same with Fast Lanes. And again, all of these were raffle prizes. Buffalo Wild Wings, I'll let Skylar kind of talk about them in a minute, but they have become a great partner and are really working on helping step up with different sports and everything leagues as well this year. Escape from Mystery Manor, they stepped up with 2 large packages for the tournament as well. Those were a huge hit and people were really excited about that. We had a chocolate basket. I don't know, Epic, she donated some things as well. And Lifestyle Nutrition, just trying to get people out there and getting them involved in different things with different sponsors. Texas Roadhouse, again, they stepped up and for gift certificates. So instead of giving a plaque and everything, each person on the winning first place team was able to receive a Texas Roadhouse gift certificate from them, and which helps be able to give back and everything to the community and getting people out there.
So yeah, Maggie mentioned Buffalo Wild Wings and Texas Roadhouse were 2 big sponsors that we brought on this year. For both our spike ball, cornhole, and disc golf leagues, they provided dinner gift cards and coupons. This was really helpful in keeping our league fees cheap, just for a resident player fee of $10 for a Meridian resident, and $20 for a non-Meridian resident. Really allowed us to keep it cheap for our community and give these winning teams, a nice night out of dinner.
So 2020 addition and changes. Due to COVID, we had planned prior to that to bring back the 4v4 summer volleyball league, but hosted indoors this year or last year at home court. And due to COVID, we weren't able to host that, which was a bummer. We did end up changing the format to our softball leagues as we had planned, co-eds playing on specific nights and men's playing on specific nights. Right before COVID hit, right as COVID hit, we did get Skylar Cook hired as our new recreation coordinator once for sports. And he's been a great addition to our team and really been able to help us expand some things.
Yeah, thank you, Maggie. Just created some more leagues like we had already mentioned. It was a wild time getting hired on right as everything got shut down, but I learned a lot this year and I'm excited to be a part of the city going forward.
So some challenges. 2020, obviously COVID hit us. I know we keep talking about it, but we worked through the guidelines as they changed through the year to make it possible to host our leagues and events. We really tried to keep the people being creative and adapt as they changed. We tried to adapt to keep them people active and involved the best to our abilities and what we were allowed to do within the guidelines and make it fit for the safety of the community. What do we foresee for our 2021 challenges? Still the unknown of gathering sizes. Things that are looking up, hopefully. We are planning for spring volleyball and spring softball to get geared up here end of March for start dates, registration, hopefully starting soon. It based off of how Central District meeting goes soon. But we are getting geared up for those. So we're looking forward to that. There's still the unknown of gym space with schools. Just having to grow our leagues would push us into Fridays and the youth of schools during normal times, but plus also on this, it has reduced our abilities and everything to work and everything just to make sure that they keep the schools safe as well. Field space is always a challenge. And with the growing sizes and everything that we have had in the past for our leagues for use of fields, not just for our leagues, but for outside people as well for requests and based off of light usage as well. So some fun facts. Our Holiday Classic volleyball tournament, we did end up raising approximately $3,813. This helped purchase around 620 gifts for 52 kids from the Meridian Head Start program. That came from fees, donations, raffles. The officials work at a reduced rate and or donate their whole time back. They just donate it because they want to help out. So we had 7 other kids that were part of that program that other people helped buy gifts for. And then those Sparklights stepping up, we were able to help provide these gifts and everything to these children this year. It was an amazing thing. So our softball season, during the softball season, 20,129 total runs were scored this year in 80 days of softball. So, or 250 runs per night on an average, which is a lot of times they go around a base. So that's kind of just give you a perspective of how much time just our league is out on those bases and the wear and tear we do on the fields and how that does affect it. Just the month of July, 5,420 runs were scored on the 4 fields because we only use 1 field at each site this year. So with Discovering having 2 fields, Bear Creek, Tully, and then Story only having the 1 for softball, we only used 1 field at a location to keep the number of people reduced. So that is where 4 versus our larger number of 7 usually is. So our winter, spring, and fall volleyball leagues combined was almost 50,000 points scored, averaging 777 points scored per night on an average over 64 nights played this season. Just kind of some interesting stuff. And again, our winter and fall season were both cut short due to COVID. losing about 18 nights of play from their tournament games this year. So, any questions for me and Skylar?
Does anyone have any questions?
Madam President,
Yes,
this is Camden.
Camden.
I just had a question for either of you. Being a kid or being a teenager, I know you mentioned the disc golf with the youth. Were there age restrictions on like the cornhole or spike ball tournaments? Or is there, in the future, are we going to have just youth tournaments, or is there talk of that?
Yes, I'll answer that question. We did have a 16 or older rule in place for cornhole and our spike ball tournaments. We primarily are adult sports right now. We're looking into adding other youth type tournaments, such as our girls fast pitch tournament. And disc golf with the Halloween was our first crack at having youth involved in that. There was no age restrictions for that. And it went very smoothly. So we're looking at it, and we're hoping to bring on more youth sports opportunities in the future. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question, which maybe it's more geared towards Garrett, but with the golf course, since we just went over the Lakeview Golf Course information, is that something that will be introduced into the city as having any type of tournament or league?
When it comes to golf, is that what you're asking? I'd probably punt and refer that to Mike. The golf course is used quite heavily on weekends and things. And I believe there are some tournaments that are out there, but Mike be able to answer that question better than me regarding the golf course. Mike?
I'm going to punt. No, actually, there are a couple. So the Chamber of Commerce has historically had their annual golf tournament there. Last year they moved, so we're trying to get that back. And then I know that with Public Works Week, they had a golf tournament at Lakeview as well. So those two, we want to get the chamber back. We want to continue to hold the Public Works Week annual golf tournament. And then if there's other opportunities, we're into it. I know there's already a few that have booked for this upcoming year, but we're open to ideas for sure.
I think that potentially there could be lessons. I mean, for people who aren't, like introduction to golf, or just for the community to get involved or exposed. I know some people feel a little intimidated.
Yeah.
Stepping onto a golf course if they don't know any of the rules, or, there's a lot of etiquette that isn't posted. You just are supposed to know. So I don't know, even if it was something that was online or just information. So maybe not that it isn't already busy there, but it might be helpful.
Yeah, so Ryan Roberts, the general manager, is also a PGA golf professional who has lessons, but I believe that we have some in our activity guide that kind of fill that gap where it could be intimidating going out with a golf pro, and maybe the classes that are offered in the activity guide fill that void.
We have a lot of youth lessons out there with the golf pro that kind of go over some of those things, but it's basically for beginners.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and if Madam President, this is Steve, just to try and answer your question directly, we have no plans to start an adult golf league, but we do very much intend to partner with the golf course on classes and those kind of offerings like you are describing. And Jenna, I believe, has already reached out to the golf course to ask what classes can we put in our summer activity guide for this year.
Correct.
That makes me happy. Okay.
Madam President?
Yes.
This is Garrett. I just have a few more things to add regarding Maggie and Skylar, if there's no more questions from the commission.
Please. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I can't hear you. I think you're muted. on the, just to speak to Maggie and Skylar, we're pretty proud of what they were able to accomplish this year with COVID. One thing that I really want to reiterate is that we have all been in constant communication with CDH, what's allowed, what's not allowed, going to stage 2, 3, and 4, then back to stage 3 and back to stage 2 and those types of things. So it's been a challenge this year, but we've went through and done a really good job of providing stuff for people to do, like Skylar's cornhole and Maggie's softball and things like that. Another thing that they didn't really mention was in the downtime, if there was any downtime this last year, they actually helped out with other departments too. So Maggie helped out with a lot of the Christmas activities and stuff in bags and just those types of things. And then Skylar actually got to go out to the parks and work with the parks guys and take down Christmas lights and things like that too. So it's been a really good experience in that aspect where they got to see other, I guess, department stuff that they were involved in, and they've just stayed busy all year. So just want to give them kudos for that and everything they did this year.
Thank you, Garrett.
And thank you for your presentation. It's nice to have some visual aid.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yeah. We wouldn't, I mean, honestly, thinking about Parks and Rec and, having the increase in outdoor activities, there probably was a lot of focus on what you guys brought to the table. Okay. Does anyone have anything else? All right, well, thank you, Maggie and Skylar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, next we have an arts and culture update with Audrey Belknap.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, it's saying that my video is failing to start on my laptop. So I don't really know what that's about, but I think we can continue on. And if you can hear me, then things should be just fine.
We can hear you, Audrey, and we can see your presentation.
Okay, yeah, that's the important part. It's not as important to see my face. As long as you can see the presentation, that's fine. Okay, so it is good to be here. It has been a strange year, just like Maggie and Skylar have been talking about. But fortunately for the Arts Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission, we've been able to continue a lot of our programs. So we have been very fortunate this year. So first I'll talk about the Arts Commission and then we'll move to the Historic Preservation Commission. But as far as the Arts Commission in 2020, we had 5 new commissioners this year. I highlighted them in blue. We welcome them to our commission and we're very happy to have them. We have a superstar commission right now with all of our commissioners being so ready and willing to do research, to brainstorm new ideas and ways that we can get involved in the community. And I think it's a great sign of good things to come. But I guess I don't want to jump too far ahead into the future. This is about 2020. So going to 2020, Rachel, if you want to go to the next slide. The Arts Commission was able to do several new projects this year, brand new, fresh projects. So I wanted to highlight those things first and foremost. Our first new project that I wanted to focus on is the first steps in developing our public art plan. These first steps included working with, via partnerships, a public art consultant. And this may sound familiar to you. I came and did a presentation about the Arts Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission in May. And so that was, less than a year ago. So some of these may sound familiar, but just to refresh you on what we did in 2020, I'm going to reference some of the same projects. So as you may remember, we've been working with via partnerships, a third party consultant who evaluated our public art program and in order to give us recommendations and help us establish priorities and a vision for the public art in Meridian. they gave us a whole list of the strengths and weaknesses of our public art program, and it has been so helpful. It took about 6 months of research, so we worked really closely with them, and we're really happy with the final report that they gave us. So our next step is to workshop the final report that we received this last year and transition it from a report into a working public art plan. And that public art plan will become an addendum to our current strategic plan. Our workshop is scheduled for later this month. So we anticipate that our public art plan will be finished by this summer or late spring even. We're excited to see how that turns out. Our next new project is the Meridian mural series, which is particularly exciting because these will be 3 new murals completed this summer in Meridian. 2 are going to be downtown, the Sage Point Financial Building, which you'll see in the center here. That's about on Main and Broadway. Meridian Cycles, which is a building here on Main Street, and then the Boise Co-op, which is right by Kleiner Park. So all 3 of these murals will be the first city-funded murals, or so the first murals in Meridian's public art collection. So we've learned a lot as we have looked into murals and put out some call to artists and requests from property owners. And the first thing that we learned is that the community is supportive of these murals. We received great responses from local property owners, enough that if we're able to do this again, we feel comfortable that there would be plenty of businesses, property owners who would be interested in participating in brightening Meridian's buildings and creating art with us. We also received plenty of responses from artists. Mostly we anticipate mostly local responses, but for this particular call to artists, we received national and regional applications, which were really good quality. So it was really wonderful to see so much diversity in our artists. We have been able to choose, of course, the 3 properties and the 3 artists. So what's next for us is getting the property owners together and the artists together and really working on the design process so that these murals will be able to be completed by the end of the summer. Our last fresh new project that we worked on in 2020 was the ornament drop. We just did it this past December. The ornament drop was a holiday spinoff of our popular art drop activity that usually takes place during Art Week, where people bring any form of art and drop it in downtown to leave for someone else to pick up. Only instead of just any artwork, we did ornaments, and it was quite successful. We were so pleased with the turnout and the response that we received from the community. It was so fun to see all these different ornaments hanging on the Christmas tree in Generations Plaza in downtown. We found that this activity was appealing to a very wide audience just as part of their holiday celebrations. I put on the left-hand picture was my favorite ornament that was put on the tree. It just seemed so applicable and relatable. So it was so successful that we think we're going to do it again this year and maybe make it a tradition because it was so well received and so fun. So those are our 3 new projects, but as always, we have other programs that we are keeping going with and really seeing good things come out of. This year we had 3 new public art installations. The first one was Champion's Flame in Champion Park and Illuminations by Ken McCall in Renaissance Park. These 2 projects were part of the ongoing efforts to do park identity projects, to put art in the parks and to kind of create landmarks or identity creating visual pieces for our parks, since our community loves our parks so much. So we're really excited to see those go in this year. And then finally this summer, Daniel Borup's statue, All in Another Day at the Office, was installed at Fire Station number 6. And we are happy to do that. That's our first public art piece on city property that it's like a first responder property. So we're glad to honor our first responders with this, and happy to have that. Next for public artwork is our annual traffic box series. We had 2 new wraps installed this year. As always, 5 wraps were selected by local artists, funded by our Meridian Art and Public Spaces Ordinance, and 5 were selected from the West Ada School District Student Art Show, and is funded by the Meridian Downtown Corporation. I put in 3 pictures of 3 of the 10 pieces that were installed this year. Wanted to note that the picture on the left-hand side, The Magic of Reading by Rhea Wardle, this was installed this summer before we knew Rhea, but then Rhea became one of our youth commissioners. So it's fun to have one of our commissioners' artwork installed in the public for everyone to enjoy. The Initial Point Gallery in City Hall is ongoing. This was a tougher year. This is one of the areas that we were impacted by the pandemic. Usually we have 12 exhibits per year, but this year we had 8. We had to cancel a couple due when the statistics for infection were bad in our community. Even with all of that, we were still able to showcase the work of 98 artists. A lot of those were in group shows, and it was really a wide range of art that we got to showcase, from collage, you can see here, oil painting, acrylic painting, watercolor, even some multimedia, and of course 3D artwork. You can see the talented Ted Smith, his wood carving and painting of birds, just absolutely incredible. So we were pleased with the artwork that we got to show this year, even though it wasn't as we didn't see as many visitors as we would in a normal year, but we're going to keep going along. We have already scheduled our gallery calendar for 2021. And when we released that call to artists, we are so pleased to have double the average number of applicants applied to be in our gallery. So we're happy to see that the artists know about our gallery and are interested in showing in our gallery, and we're happy to expose the public to all different kinds of artwork, and we're excited to continue our exhibits this next year. As always, we had our art week. It did look a little different this year due to the pandemic. We transitioned Art Week into art classes, highlighting all different art forms, whether it was music or dance or theater or visual artwork, including painting and floral arranging and printmaking, those things. We had 13 different classes that we offered, and 11 different professionals participated. We are so grateful for all the professionals who worked with us. They were so gracious and accommodating as we were figuring out and transitioning all these things. The most popular activities in our art week was the art drop. Is such a classic and a fan favorite. I don't know if you can hear me. There's a vacuum. I think the janitors are coming through. So I hope y'all just talk louder. But and well as we were able to do a virtual chalk art competition. So people were able to chalk art their own sidewalks, submit a picture, and then we had voting on social media, and we had a lot of participate on the voting, and it was kind of fun to be able to publish and post the chalk artwork instead of just making that super public, instead of just the people who walk by. It was quite fun. So that was our art commission, and now our historic preservation commission has also been up to many good projects. We had one new commissioner this year join us, and it's been good to have her too. our first project this year was with the whole film virtual tours. I know I highlighted this in May. I don't think that our newest sites were up yet though. Our newest sites are Meridian City Hall / the Creamery. We have some old pictures in there of the Creamery and the Meridian Speedway. Rachel, could you click on that link just for a second? This is one of the fun things that we get to have a physical product, and a physical product that we get to show people so that they can see. Well, I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm sure this PowerPoint will be in the minutes, in the minute book after the meeting. So that link will be there for anyone to see, but it's a 3D tour of City Hall with highlight points of historical photos of what the Creamery used to be like, the site that we're sitting on, and the importance of the Creamery in our community, as well as the Meridian Speedway. It's fun to see some comparisons of what it looks like now versus what it looked like in the past, and really get the 3D image of that. Our other big project this year was listing the Meridian Speedways, or the dairy show property, on the list of the National Register of Historic Places. This is significant to our community. We don't have a property in Meridian listed on the National Registry of Historic Places, and the Speedway has always been a landmark part of Meridian. And come to find out in the research that we've done, is very rare to have a racetrack listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So we are really excited to do this project. So we received a grant from the State Historic Preservation Office to complete the reconnaissance survey. The first step in listing this property on the National Registry is to do an intensive research of the property. It's past what its place in the community was, how the community felt about it, how it impacted the community, just to determine if the property is eligible. So we partnered with we hired a local business, Tag Historical Research, to complete this research, and we received their final research report in December, and they gave us a 40-minute presentation on all the research they had done. And it was absolutely fascinating to learn about the history of the Speedway and the Dairy Days show, the Dairy Days property, and the dual purpose that it served in the community as both a speedway racetrack and a place for people to show their cows and animals and things. It is such a funny combination of purpose that property serves, but it's something that makes it unique. And Tag Historical Research has recommended that we move forward with it. They thought it was eligible. So what's next is we submitted this to the State Historic Preservation Office, and they'll let us know if they agree that it's eligible and ready to move forward for the listing. It's been a great process. So we also did, in May is Preservation Month. And this year we went virtual because of the pandemic. And we highlighted and told stories from our downtown walking tour, our historic properties. And as we posted these throughout the month, it was so fun to see people pull out their own memories, say, I remember when I went to Meridian High School and it was at this location, or I remember going here, there, this family or that family. And so it really helps us realize how we do have a strong community of history supporters, or some people who have been here a long time and have memories of these places. So we're glad to highlight them on our social media, and we're looking to continue to build our social media presence and be able to share history on social media. It's the most accessible way to reach the public right now, I think. And so we kind of want to tap into that and be able to educate the public on Meridian history through social media. So that hopefully will be coming out this year as well. So that is all of our major projects for the Arts Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission. Like I said, it's been a really strange year, but we've been really fortunate to continue to work on our projects. And we have both of our commissioners are really great and gung-ho about our projects. So I think good things are to come, but we've also had a great year.
Thank you, Audrey. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Thank you for the presentation and the information to follow that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also thought that that ornament was my favorite as well.
Yes.
Okay, well, moving on then, our next new business item is the Kleiner Park pickleball concept discussion, and this is an action item.
Okay, thank you, Madam President, and thanks for Rachel for bringing that up. I wanted to, we have an opportunity for a partnership that would bring pickleball to Kleiner Park. And we'll go into some of the details about that. But before I do, I kind of wanted to just give a little bit of background in case anybody's needs a refresher on what pickleball is and you know, some of the court dimensions and you know, some of the pickleball is a sport that's growing every day in popularity. We have a big outdoor following. As you can see right here, this is a picture of a tournament that was at Settlers Park. So we have pickleball courts at Settlers. We also have some courts at Rita Husky that we installed. And we plan on adding some courts to Discovery Park once phase 2 goes into construction. But then on the left, there is also a number of courts that have been striped at the home court facility. When the weather's too bad to play outdoors, everybody moves indoors. And from what I understand, it's really, really busy. Obviously not with COVID, but pre-COVID, and it'll come back. There's 2 associations, USA Pickleball, and then there's the Boise Area Pickleball Association that most of these folks that you see are probably members of. And I've got a little video that's about a minute or so that goes into some of the court dimensions and rules. And as I was putting this together, I thought I'd just include it. It's a little bit of background information and what pickleball is. So Rachel, if you could kind of cue that up, that would be awesome. I think I might be able to share for a minute and bring it up, Rachel.
It looks like the URL, it should be YouTube maybe? Is it supposed to be youtube.be?
Let's see here.
Is that period misplaced in the link?
Was that working? No. Well, let's, that was a good thought. So we're going to skip over that and I'll stop sharing here. Okay, Rachel, can you bring the slides back up, please? So yeah, Boise Area Pickleball Association and then the USA Pickleball are the two organizations that people belong to, and they promote the sport, and they provide an organization that promotes tournaments and just the well-being of the sport. Next slide, please. So the typical pickleball court layout is 44 by 20, and then there's 8 to 10 feet in between each court. The ideal orientation obviously is north-south. Next slide, please. So here's kind of a rundown of areas that you can play in the valley. You can see that Boise has quite a few courts. The Boise Area Pickleball Associations provided a little bit of seed money to repurpose Hobble Creek Park, which had some aging tennis courts. So they were able to go in there and pour concrete and add fencing and nets and surfacing and add an additional 12 courts. And then, as you can see in Meridian, Victory Middle School, there's some dual striping, Settlers Park, Sawtooth, and Rita Husky Park. And then also on that list is Discovery Park. We're planning on adding a total of 6 courts there. And then also Meridian has the indoor courts at Home Court, which I've heard is one of the largest indoor facilities for sure in the valley, if not one of the largest in the Northwest. Next slide, please. So what we have been working on is a potential partnership with the Brighton Corporation to build 4 courts in Kleiner Park. And where we are now is we're in the planning stage. We are determining a location, which I'll show you here in just a second. We're talking about partnership agreements, determining what a budget might look like. Part of that partnership is we have a request to grant a priority use to the Brighton Corporation, and it would be for 10 years on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 o'clock in the morning till noon. Some of the planning efforts are relocating a couple of disc golf holes. There's one tee and then there's one basket that would have to shift a little bit. We think we've found a spot where it seems to fit without too much disruption. And then the diagram that I'm going to show you in a minute, we need to shift the courts away from the sledding hill, which is basically the bottom of the slope that you'll see in a minute. So the contribution from the city would be some design work and then some landscaping repair that we've estimated to be right in the $25,000 range. The contribution from the Brighton Corporation would be the court construction, concrete sidewalk, surfacing, fencing, any kind of comfort and convenience items. We already have drinking water in the spots. We'd want to add a couple of benches. So we've estimated that project to be right in the $250,000 range. So in exchange for the priority use, we would be getting 4 pickleball courts for 10% of the cost. And then of course the city would manage the project so it's constructed to our specifications and because we want it to last. So the plan is to go through these processes, get it in the right spot, get the right agreements, with a possible opening in the summer of 2021. And I think before I move on to where we're thinking about, I'll just pause right there to see if there's any questions.
Mike, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, that last map, the map that you were showing that showed the pickleball courts and then some of them were dual use with tennis courts. Is there a benefit to having both uses on a court, or is that something that's possible?
So a typical, like at Settlers Park, where we have those pods of tennis courts, we have 2 courts. Within those 2 courts, you can get 2 pickleball courts. So it's an awesome way to have dual use, but it takes up a lot more space.
Is that anything that's been discussed? Even if it would take up more space, it seems like it would allow more residents use of the courts.
Yeah. So let me hold that thought, and maybe this schematic diagram that we have will offer an explanation to that. And but there could be, yeah. Hold that thought. We'll get there. I'll show you the diagram, and then we could talk about whether it fits as 4 pickleball courts and 2 tennis courts. But let's see. So if there aren't any other questions about this, and we can always go back. Rachel, can we see the next slide? So the location we're thinking about is at the bottom of the slope, which is north of the playground area, pretty close to the existing shelter that's on the north side of Kleiner Park. We chose this location for a couple of reasons. One of them is that it's flat. It's close to the shade, which is very important. It's close to a restroom. Some of those comfort and convenience items, there's drinking water at the shelter. It really doesn't interfere with the event space. We looked at it, the area over by the shelter A1, which is the large shelter by the bocce ball courts. And it's very popular with events, and thought that it might just be in the way over there. And the other aspect of that is because Brighton is offering to put up such a significant contribution, they wanted to locate it in a closer proximity to their new development, which is an over 55 development called Bree. And that's directly across Records Road from the park to the west. So there's that convenience to that priority use, not interfering with the event space, flat area, and then some of the other attributes with the shade and the restrooms. Next slide, please. So this is the schematic design. And just as a note, this would be shifted away from the bottom of the slope to minimize conflicts with the sledding hill. And I think the overlay of the tennis courts is there isn't a lot of room for expansion, but there's a good possibility that it might fit looking at it. So, I'm just thinking out loud, and I would like to explore the fit at least. I think that the length might be an issue, but I'm not 100% sure. So that is the last slide in my presentation, and that's what I have. And I will stand for any questions or comments and any feedback, any way we can improve the design. Happy to hear it. And if we need to go back a slide or two, just say so.
And Mike, the action on this would be,
I can take that one, Joe.
oh, thank you.
The reason why this is on as an action item is less about being a formal approval, but we are taking this to city council soon. So we thought it best to put this on as an action item just to formally seek your feedback so that we can portray to the council that we did discuss this with you. And here were the questions and comments posed by the commission. So I think we'd welcome your comments and ideas with the understanding that it's our intent to eventually take this on to council with your comments.
Thank you. Does anyone else?
Madam President?
Yes.
I just have one concern. I think overall it's a good, it's a good idea, good project. Probably my only concern would be is how you're going to manage. Obviously, Brighton's been a good partner of the city. They're good builders, good people, but just to make sure there's no entitlement that they contributed that to the project and that the citizens of that development don't think it's theirs. And granted, you got an agreement for 2 hours a day, 3 days a week, but it's also located in a nice proximity of their deal, of their community. And so potentially there could be a potential problem that can kind of consider their courts. So it's the only thing I see, but I think overall, I mean, obviously we're trying to get, it's a hugely popular sport and be a great amenity to the city, as long as everybody gets to use it.
Yeah, Madam President, John, that's a great comment. And there would definitely have to be some outreach and education through signage and whatever else, because we don't want it, we want it open to the public. We don't want it, they're not private for sure. So it would have to be understood, and we could even work with the breed development to publish things in the, whatever, if they have a newsletter or bulletin board, and we could, with signage that's on site close to the entrance to the courts, then, kind of acknowledge the partnership and then also talk about the priority use, because we definitely want it to be open to everyone outside of those hours.
Right. Yeah. But overall, I mean, I think it's a great project, and that would be my only concern. It just brings me flashbacks of Bear Creek Park and how much of a battle that was because all the citizens thought it was their park. And, granted, it's, that was something that is, and this is not the same as that situation, but it just so there's no sense of entitlement, but.
Great comment.
So, Madam President, this is Commissioner West. I just wanted to add that, I think this is a great opportunity. I think adding, partnering with an organization that we've partnered with before and can trust, and trying to add more amenities to the community any way we can is a wonderful opportunity. I'm glad we're taking consideration of.
Madam President, this is Commissioner Bobo. Can you go back one slide to the map? If I recall, there is Frisbee golf that goes through there. Is it a flexible course? I'm not entirely familiar with Frisbee golf, but isn't there Frisbee golf that goes through there?
Yeah, so you can, that's a great question. Thank you. So the number 8T is currently located where you can see the white line, and we would relocate it to right where the cursor is right there. And then there's a basket that's the number 9 basket that's up on the slope that we would probably evaluate over time, but because I mean, keep in mind the courts are going to shift away from the bottom of the slope, so it'll give that number 9 basket a little bit of breathing room. So those tees are poles and signage that's in concrete, and I mean, it's not like you can pick them up and move them, but you can dig them out and move them fairly easily.
Okay.
So Mike, when you were saying the footprint of the dual use courts, do you mean that the tennis courts run perpendicular and that pickleball courts fit within those?
Yes.
Okay. So how did, oh, so then there's a net down the middle? Like, how does that work?
So if there was one, so the courts at Settlers Park have 2 tennis courts, and within the 2 tennis courts, you can fit 2 pickleball courts. So one pickleball court on each tennis court.
So does someone need to be present then to switch out nets? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. The net, so we would have to really look at that, because with this configuration, you would have one tennis court and 1 pickleball court. So I'm not 100% sure. I mean, if you had 1 tennis court, you can turn the pickleball courts so you can have 1 on each end. But what that does is it changes the orientation from north-south to east-west. So somebody's getting killed with the sun. It's either tennis or pickleball. So, and then as far as the net height goes, there's 3/4 of an inch difference between tennis and pickleball. The pickleball players they crank the net down to add a little bit of slack in the middle, and it seems to work just fine.
Madam President?
Yes.
This is Steve. I would just like to weigh in with my quick opinion. I'm all for Mike looking into this just to look, but my opinion right now, and I appreciate the question, because we really like and try to do multi-use amenities whenever we can. You saw that last month as we were talking about Discovery Park, and you saw the baseball fields that would also work as, football, soccer, lacrosse type fields as well, based on the way that we adjusted the fencing. In this particular case, I think that the space is too restrictive to try and do a dual use. And I also think the popularity of pickleball on its own is a strong driving force to make these into single-use pickleball courts. The single-use pickleball courts are definitely the most popular. We have single-use and dual-use ones in Settlers, and the single-use ones fill up first. And they've been very, very popular as well at Rita Husky, where we just did pickleball courts. So all for continuing to look into the feasibility, but that's my initial take for what it's worth.
Thank you. I suppose my where this is coming from is that as our community is growing rapidly, these really curtail towards a more seasoned age group. And so I don't see a lot of things coming into play. Like we had a question about the youth league teams for different things that adults already have for adult sports. And so I do know there are a lot of pickleball, groups. I don't know if it's a league, but I just want to make sure that all of the residents of Meridian are being considered in something like this, because this is one of our parks that serves the entire community, not just a 55 and up development.
That's a good comment. I mean, we definitely, pickleball seems to be most popular with a certain demographic, and we want to provide recreational opportunities and amenities for a wide variety of ages. That's the goal. And I've seen kids playing pickleball, but that's not the norm for sure.
Or maybe a different perspective is there could be something for youth that has to do with pickleball. Maybe that's part of a different push. I don't know. Because this is a huge, undergoing for Brighton to take on and to be part of. So of course, don't want to insult them in any way.
Madam President, if I could just, this is Commissioner West. One thing that I'm thinking about is like that grass today, without Brighton's help, without bringing this in, does it really get fully utilized by much, or just potentially when people are doing the what's it called, frisbee golf? Like, I think that area is for the most part not filled with people often, like that area. And so to me, it's kind of like adding an amenity to something that's not in heavy use today, but it's not taking away from anything else that currently happens in that area. I mean, besides moving the basket. But I know that doesn't help a lot. I just thought I'd add that. And I think in previous discussions, it had come up, our pickleball classes in the past have been for the 55 and up with that company that there's a company that normally handles those or offers those through our activities program, I believe. And we've talked about asking them to extend the age group on that. And I think, I can't remember where that left off, but I like the idea of trying to get more classes for more age groups available to bring in other areas. Cause I don't know how to play, but I would like to learn how to play. And with this that close to the playground, my kids could be playing on the playground and I could be playing pickleball. So to me, I think it may be really popular in a certain group to the age group, but some of that might be too, because I don't think we offer classes for the other age groups at this time. So there might be an opportunity there.
Yeah, good idea.
Madam President, Commissioner Bobo. So I'm glad to hear that there is a concern with the direction of the pickleball courts, because that seems to be the #1 complaint I hear about Rita Husky in those courts is that, oh, they're great courts, but they face the wrong direction. So I would be concerned about any sort of plan that would involve, if it's multi-use, as long as the pickleball courts or whichever one would get used most, which I would assume would be the pickleball courts, would be facing the correct direction or the most appealing direction.
Yeah. Definitely a consideration. The courts at Rita Husky, I think, are 23 degrees off true north because we've looked into it. And you can see that even the slightest adjustment to that true north-south orientation can affect how people play, especially in those summer months where the sun is rising early, and if the courts are just turned slightly, then the sun's right in your eyes. So yeah, we definitely want them facing north.
So moving forward, what would our action item look like?
So I believe the general consensus is that it's a good idea. Possibly look into some kind of a dual use, make sure that there's enough outreach and signage to, if there's a priority use there, to keep it that and and do a good job communicating that these are public courts and that priority use, and acknowledge the donation, relocate the number 8 disc golf tee and slide the courts away from the toe of the slope. I think if I've missed something, let me know.
I think that was everything. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Madam President, if there's not anything else to add, I would just say that that gives us what we hope to get out of tonight. So I don't think we need a formal motion, but if there's general consensus that that is the comments that we should take forward and look into, then I think we've got what we needed tonight.
Very well. No one else has anything, then it sounds like everyone's in agreement, and it did sound like you had everything.
Madam President,
Yes.
can I bring up something on a different subject matter, but we're talking about Kleiner? I just had a quick question for Mike. Is that doable?
Sure.
Yes.
The bocce ball courts, last time I was there, I don't know if that's something, there's no scoreboards. Is that something that you've ever considered to put in some kind of a scoreboard there for the bocce ball courts?
Honestly, never thought about it. We have thought about changing the surface to oyster shells and go away from the bumpy artificial grass, but never considered a scoreboard.
If you go there, it's just, it's something that is a lot of the other, or at least a couple of the other courts I've visited. You have ability, you kind of have a way to keep track of the score, especially when you're, like doing a tournament or something. And I realize that one's probably, I don't know if it's used because of it doesn't have the right, technically the right surface for maybe the competitive people, but just something to consider, because it's pretty important. You got to remember to bring a piece of paper or something to keep track of that. And it's
right.
At least from my perspective of using it, it would be nice to have.
Well, thank you. I'll look into it.
Isn't that what cell phone scorekeeping apps are for these days?
Never thought of that, but yeah, maybe that's too old school.
I'll look into it.
Well, if there's nothing else, and I just want to verify with Emily that we do not need to make a motion. Is Emily there? She was just there.
I'm back.
Hi, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Saw you.
I guess I would defer to Mike. It sounded informational, perhaps at this point, but is there specific action, Mike, that you would ask of the commission?
I believe we have what we need, and we'll follow through with those items that were specifically brought up, and I think we're good to go.
Great, thank you. And Steve verified that already, but I just wanted to make sure. I don't want to get on to the next item and have you let me know that I was wrong. Okay, well, with that, thank you so much for that information, Mike, and for everyone's comments. Because they were all very good points. We have no workshop, so our last item is our staff reports.
Madam President.
Yes,
Steve.
Mr. Sidway.
First of all, thank you all for the feedback and your attention tonight. There's been some great updates, and we really appreciate you weighing in and giving us your perspective, because that's why we do this, and it's very valuable to us as a sounding board to just ask those questions to make sure we're not missing something. So really appreciate that. I'm going to give you my fast top 10. My first one. If Jessica, if you're there and want to turn on your video, Jessica Perot is now our city council liaison. Brad Hoagland was our council liaison last year. But I wanted to take just a moment and introduce everyone to Councilwoman Perot, and maybe just turn a moment over to you to introduce yourself to the commission.
Sounds good. So you want me to introduce myself now, or do you want to introduce everyone else first?
Oh, wow. I'm not sure I could do that very well. Why don't you introduce?
I wasn't sure.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Hey, everybody. So I have been listening to your meeting this evening, just haven't had my camera on, doing a little double duty at work tonight. So as Steve shared, I'll be your council liaison this year. This is my second year on city council, and prior to running for seat number 5, which was Genesis Milam's seat, I was a planning and zoning commissioner for 3 years. So that's how I got involved in the city of Meridian to begin with. And I also am the designated broker of a real estate office here in downtown Meridian, right on Pine near Main Street, which is we're just kind of right across from 830 Common and that area. So if you all are out and about in downtown Meridian, stop on in where somebody's usually here. We have a great refrigerator full of drinks. We'd love to see you and come say hello to us. So in addition to obviously being on city council, I'm brokering an office of about 40 agents. And then also I sell, buy and sell real estate for my own personal clients. So I have 3 jobs. So if you see me and it looks like my head's gonna spin off my neck, that's what's going on. So that's enough about me. I'm pretty excited about being involved with Parks and Rec this year. I used to work as an asset manager for a private lending company here in Meridian, and we were involved with the Tamarack receivership for the golf course at Tamarack when that was going through foreclosure. And I've also worked with golf courses in different parts of the state that were in delinquent situations in the downturn. So I wouldn't say I'm 100% well-versed on it, but I think I have a background that does lend itself to at least understanding somewhat of what we're going through with Lakeview. So I'm excited about that part. I'm glad that the council president decided to appoint me to Parks to be a part of that this year. And then I'm also the liaison for HR. So just a small amount of roles for me this year. I was the community development liaison last year, which I enjoyed just having that background with planning and zoning and being in the real estate industry. So if you need to reach out to me, my city email is jperot@meridiancity.org. If you don't know how to spell it, I'm all over the city website. But do feel free to reach out to me if you want to chat with me about anything with Parks and Rec. I'm meeting with Steve once a month to go over a lot of what you shared today. And also he and I will of course be communicating in the interim about various things that are happening. So always feel free to reach out to me if you would like to chat about anything.
Thank you, Councilwoman Perot. We hope you feel welcome. We're excited to have you as our liaison for the coming year, and glad to have you join us for our meetings.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Councilwoman Perot before I move on?
I want to say welcome, and this is probably a lot lower key than planning and zoning.
Yeah, for sure. It's really nice to just kind of sit back and get to listen a little bit. And I'm learning a lot. I'm always sort of picking Steve's brain about things because I think Parks and Rec is a fascinating department and so much fun, right? And we kind of get to be the fun department. I'm hoping that Treg never asked me to do public works, but don't tell them that I said that.
All right.
Glad to have you.
Thank you. Well, we did have some great updates tonight. So my second one is just to express my pride in those numbers related to the sports program that you already heard tonight. But to think that we had 124 volleyball teams in winter, 73 in spring, another 98 in the fall, 106 softball teams, 425 total teams, and almost 4,000 participants that were still able to do something through us in spite of such a challenging year and so many things that did have to be postponed, delayed, modified, etc., was just awesome. And then my third one was similar. You already heard from Audrey, but the work that she's been doing with Arts Commission and Historic Preservation Commission has just been wonderful. My fourth item is a shout out to Commissioner Bobo. If I'm not mistaken, Commissioner Bobo, you were one of those 7 that were mentioned that did the Meridian Challenge. Is that correct?
That was correct. I did it, and it did a good job of getting me out and about in the community during COVID. It was a good motivator.
Well, thank you for participating. I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you. My fifth item is this is probably stealing a little bit of Garrett's thunder, but we are looking forward to reopening the home court soon. I think you heard just a smidge about that, but we do anticipate that things are at least likely to open up at the next Central District Health meeting on February the 19th. So we have plans in place to open the 20th on that Saturday, the very next day. So, you know, with all of these things, with sports and everything else that we do, our mantra continues to be to do what we can to be safe, follow the guidelines, but to do what we can. We know what these programs that we offer the community are important. And we're so happy to see that things are look like they're opening up. So my sixth item is the community center. That's been a lot of work recently, and you already heard the update on that. Look forward to talking with you next month. Number 7 is Lakeview, which you've also heard an update on. But well, Mike, I got to give him a shout out for doing, you know, 99% of the heavy lifting on our end. You know, there's a fair amount that reaches me, and it's definitely been one of those big ticket items that are very, very important to us. Number 8 is just a bit of a shout out to Rachel, and it is budget season. We're starting our budget development this week, and lots and lots and lots of work yet to come. We're just barely starting, but just to let you know that is on our radar. Number 9, I've been heavily involved in the all-employee citywide meeting that's coming up on February 24th, 2 weeks from today. So we're going to try and do that as a large-scale virtual event with over 500 people, and looking forward to that. And my last item, number 10, is the strategic plan. Is another big ticket item on our plates. Council did approve a framework with focus areas for the city to move forward for the next 5 years. Starting, I just had a meeting this week with Vincent Kuntz, who's the strategic planning lead in the mayor's office. And we're gearing up for a very busy March where we will be developing, you know, goals, actions beneath those focus areas, and figure out how we implement these things over the next 5 years. So lots and lots of work going on for us, and I'll stand for any questions. If not, we can move on to Mike.
That was a really good top 10.
I don't have a top 10. I have 2. There's a lot going on, and I'm excited to hear about what Kim has to say, because she hasn't said anything tonight, and I know that she's absolutely buried with pathway stuff.
Madam President, was that a segue? Even though it's Garrett's turn, technically?
Correct.
Thanks, Mike. Can everyone hear me all right? So yeah, buried in pathway stuff, which is a good thing. I think the main focus lately has been working with our 3 teams of consultants to do 13 plus 1 projects. And a lot of these came out of our Pathways tour, where we noticed the disconnects, the areas where there were gaps in the system. Some of it was low hanging fruit. Anyway, we have this list. We have 3 consultants, 3 batches of projects, and they're moving right along. So yeah, it's been a lot. We'll probably be due for an update here in a couple of months because we do have conceptual alignments now for all these projects. Some of them, they're always a little bit more complicated than they look. I mean, a pathway on a plan looks like, just an offset couple of lines, but you get out in the field and sometimes, yeah, there are issues with trees or power poles or so there can be some finessing, even though it looks like a simple thing. So we've been doing some of that with consultants, coordinating with the irrigation district. Here's what we're thinking. Can we do this? Is it and so yeah, the teams are kind of staggered, but we're starting to communicate with property owners and reach out to them just to get a sense. We're not going to have easements this spring or soon, but I think we'll have an idea of whether or not these projects will be a no-go. And our goal would be to be able to say that in time to jump into the budget cycle and say, yes, we feel confident that we can get permission. That's been our roadblock, I guess, since I've been at the city, is just being able to get permission for pathways. Obviously, money is not unlimited, but we tend to have more funds available than we have free access to build pathways. So we're trying to make that determination. One project that kind of came out of that we've been talking about for a while is striping the 5-mile pathway. And I think in general, we've been focused on how to create identity in the system. 5 Mile is our priority pathway. We've got a sort of a west run and an east run and a missing spot in the middle. That's part of this batch of 13. And once we connect that, I think it's really going to make a difference. So we're talking about striping the pathway. We have one of our consultants working on exhibits for how we will handle that striping at intersections. Another project that dovetails with that. I've been working with Stephanie Inman, who's an artist and graphic designer. She's done some other work for us in the park system. I know she did the Rita Husky sign and a lot of the park signs when we had that a few years ago, and we built we had a season where we opened 2 or 3 parks. Anyway, Stephanie is helping us come up with some branding for pathways. So simple, iconic kinds of logos that you can, that would mark the 5-mile pathway. We've also talked about how to integrate those with public art, how maybe to use those as quarter-mile markers, maybe with Meridian Road as our prime meridian, unintended, and then go out from there. So we're still working on those, and we probably won't install any signage except along the 5-mile pathway. But I think it's exciting. I think it will the goal is to create more visibility for all the pathways. Speaking of that, Trail Hub is still a bed for the winter. The South Slough project, and I'll give Mike a shout out for this because he tends to be in Meridian a little more than I do, and he's done a bit of coordinating. The South Slough at Locust Grove and Ustick, the southeast. That was an abbreviated project. We did just the northern portion of that, and it's pretty well done. I know that we're going to be using some excavated dirt from our Fairview Avenue project. The Fairview connection is due to start up in the next couple of weeks or when weather permits. We're going to take some of that excess excavation and use it to fill the South Slough. So that was, again, I'll give a shout to Mike, but a really good complementary use of materials and sort of matching a need with a resource. So I think with that, I will stand for any questions. That was quite a bit, but happy to hear comments or questions if you have them. Oh, and if I may, yes. Councilman Perot might be glad to hear that we're very close to having the pedestrian bridge over 10 Mile Creek, connecting the Whitestone neighborhood to 12 Oaks. So that's in. We just need to build a pathway off the bridge. So that should be a good route to school, safe route to school, and connecting people also to commercial uses, walkability. So that one came together really pretty quickly. Anyone?
I'm excited to see the artwork that comes up with the branding because nice
Yeah,
there.
Madam President, it's been interesting. Stephanie, I think, knows our park system pretty well, but I did actually meet her out on site today. I think some of her imagery was a little more lush or different than our pathways tend to be. So it's really fun to walk with her and get a sense of kind of how this project, what our goals are and how it feels on site. So it will be our plan. I don't know exact timing, but to come back with a few concepts that are a little more refined than we have going now. We've gotten a few back, but yeah, I like where it's going, and we'll be seeking input from you all as to direction. So
we look forward to seeing that. Okay, who do we have next?
I think it's my turn.
Right.
I have a top 11 for Steve, but I'll go ahead and keep it short. Some of the priorities that I've been doing has been the concession RFPs that we have for Kleiner Park this year, as well as Fuller Park. Been working a lot with CDH protocols, with all the programs that the rec staff is doing, just trying to help them out with everything, point them in the right direction regarding CDH guidance and stuff. Been still trying to get in touch with Meridian Youth Baseball and finish up their 2020 agreement amendment based on COVID, as well as the 2021 Fuller Park agreement as well. Been involved with some budget process, and I've just been working with external events that want to use our parks and what kind of protocols may be in place at the time of their event. And nobody has a crystal ball or the magic 8-ball to figure out what's going on, but we are keeping tabs on what CDH is doing, governor's doing, those types of things. So we're with that. You guys have already heard from, Audrey and our sports. So no real reason to give updates there. You heard them all. Renee with our events has been working with the citywide meeting and doing some logistics with that. She's been planning the Unplug and Be Outside that's going to happen in first part of May, as well as starting to plan the logistics of movie night and what that'll look like. So she's just working with those types of things. The classes and camps with Jenna, she's been planning summer and working with our current programs that are still being offered right now with limited gathering sizes, social distancing and things. We've still been able to do some things. And in 2020, to kind of piggyback off with some of the numbers we had with sports, we had almost 4,000 participants in some of our other classes and programs with limited numbers. So there has been some classes still going, like I just mentioned, but still following all CDH guidelines and protocols with those. She's starting to piece together the activity guide for the spring summer that we're hoping to release in April. That'll be done in-house again. So she's working with Shelly to get that put together. Home court, like Steve had mentioned, we're working on establishing basically we already have the picnic boards, painting the picnic boards, painting park restrooms and the inside and those types of things this winter while home court's been closed. So they've been repurposed a lot of the time. With that, Jake over at home court is still working on some staffing and getting them hired and ready to go. So with that, I can stand for questions.
Garrett, will you also mention that we're taking shelter reservations?
Yes. So shelter reservations open up February 1st. So at 8 a.m. The shelter season is April 10th through October 17th. So what we have done is basically allowed people to go online and reserve shelters during that time between April 10th and October 17th, with the caveat that they have to click and agree to that their shelter reservation could be canceled pending where we are, what stages we're in, gathering size limitations, etc. So the shelter season has begun. So we're already getting phone calls and emails and asking all kinds of questions. And a lot of that has to do with external events too. So that's what's going on there. So with that, I can stand for questions, if any.
I don't have any questions. Does anyone else? We get through everyone? I think we did. Is that it? I want to hear more. Okay. Well, thank you for the staff reports and for the presentations earlier. Those were nice to see. Just like you said, Steve, it was nice to see that the city continues to move forward, even when we have some adversity occurring. Could I then get someone to adjourn the meeting?
Madam President, this is Commissioner Bevan. I make a motion that we adjourn for the evening, during the meeting.
I'll second that. John Nesmith?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.